You can see I have a little post-it note of notes. Hey guys! So today I'm going to be doing a book review for Teen Tuesday, and this was a book I didn't know it was out, and I was actually really excited to read it. One of my well-liked authors, Rachel Caine. It's called Ink and Bone, and it's the first book in her new series called The Great Library. Basically what this book is about, well, it's set in a time where the Great Library of Alexandria never burned down. So it's kind of like what happens, and because she's got this whole wealth of knowledge about ancient times, and it's just about how that changes the world, having all that knowledge. And it follows this boy called Jess, who is, you know, a teenage boy amidst a criminal family. His family is part of the black market for trading books, because the whole thing is that original books, like actual physical copies of books, were really rare. And they were kind of like, it's kind of illegal to own one by the Great Library. It's kind of like drugs. It's illegal, you get prosecuted for having it in your possession. I'm pretty sure the consequence is an execution. It's quite extreme, but yeah. So what happens is, in Alexandria, it is essentially its own state. It's a little bit like Vatican City in Rome. It's completely standalone by itself. And there are special privileges for that. And it recruits librarians from around the world. They have to pass a special entrance exam. But when you get accepted to be a librarian, you give up your country, essentially. Because you do not serve your country anymore. You know, you are not German or French or Welsh or whatever. You become a librarian. And you only serve the library. That is where your loyalty lies. The library above everything else. Yeah, so it follows Jess because his father decides that he wants an insider person in the Library of Alexandria. So he sends off Jess to take the entrance exam eventually. You know, he does, and obviously he gets in, otherwise it wouldn't be the story. It just follows his journey to become a librarian. There's a group of like 30 of them, and they have a scholar who's like the leader who trains them up. And at the end of the training, you know, if they make it that far, only 6 are chosen to be librarians, and then they're given prospective certain roles specific to their talents and that sort of thing. So their scholar is Scholar Wolf, who I really love. He's really kind of harsh, and as you read the story, you kind of grow to love him. And you know, he's harsh but in like a good way, and you just see all these little snippets of different sides of the same story, and it's just really interesting because you'll see the perspective of burners who essentially they burn books because they're trying to stand up to the library and be like, no, books should be for everybody, we should be allowed to create original works, you know, that sort of thing. You see Jess's own perspective, who he's grown up to think the library is great, the library, you know, serves mankind type thing, and giving us knowledge and that sort of thing. But then you also see the perspectives of scholars who already are librarians, but also those who slightly rebel, who don't completely agree with what the library tells you because it's so traditional and nothing ever changes and that sort of thing. So you kind of see how brutal it is. And it's just it's a really nice adventure story. I really enjoyed this book. As you're reading it, you do grow to think that this group of students is like the most unlucky group ever. Just a whole bunch of shit happens, and it's just like, wow, you guys are really unlucky. You know, people die, and they're going to a war zone, and you know, all these sort of things. But at the same time, you go back to thinking, like, these guys are librarians. Like, they work for the library. How dangerous could this be? But it's actually kind of pretty dangerous. And what I really loved about this book is that there is a certain supernatural aspect to it, to the library, because they actually have some powers to an extent. They can hold a book, and they do this thing where they can actually transport the book to the archives to be handled and catalogued and whatever. But they can actually do that, like send it from one place to another, which is kind of cool. So it is a pretty good book. I think it's well written. It's It's got lots of action and intrigue. What I loved about this is that a lot of the characters are really grey. You know, there's no clear line between good and evil, and there's a lot of ambiguity running around the story, and that's just so interesting to read because you're like, oh, but these guys are the bad guys because they oppose the library, but then you learn to know more of their story, and you're kind of like, well, are they really? Because their motives, they make sense. That's kind of the scary part. These are supposedly the bad guys, but their motives makes more sense than those of the supposedly good guys. So that's been really interesting to read, and I really enjoyed this book, and I really enjoyed this book. I think it's well written. I think it's just a good book. Yes, that's why I would give it a good book. Yeah, so I'll see you guys next time.